You're listening to a Hope 1032 podcast. Raising Teens by Collett Smart with Ray Kington.
Do you ever feel weird?
As if.
It is Ray Kington, joined by Collett Smart for Raising Teens. We talk about all things teen behaviour, parent behaviour, our relationships with our teens. It's funny, years ago, my youngest was, I suppose, probably the riskier person in our family. Always willing to jump off something, run at something. Then one day she broke her arm on the ice, going ice skating. And the way she described it, it was kind of typical. She was like, running with the pack and just, throwing herself all into it, but not actually having the ability to skate. And then a broken arm kind of curtailed that. But the funny thing about that was it actually made her realise, because she'd had to hurt herself before in small ways from being a little bit boisterous, that this kind of curbed that. So suddenly she saw the result of throwing herself in a little bit too much. But the thing I always thought to myself at the time was, but sometimes we do need to take risks in life.
Yes.
And sometimes we don't, we don't want to be scaredy cats. And it's this weird balance of risk or risky behavior. Is it good? Is it bad? Where do we go with that? It's a tough one because we live in a very sheltered society now.
Absolutely. I think, for a long time, adults have always come up with ways or been trying to think of ways to protect adolescents from their own misjudgments. We're always looking at them going, what are they going to do next? And only, in recent decades, researchers have really began to understand the teen brain and how it's wired. And we spoke about that at the very start of this season's podcasts. But really, teens, they seem to make sometimes senseless choices, but it's actually the question from some of the researchers, is it their biological tendency to actually prime their brains to learn and be flexible? And also, are they learning a greater tolerance for uncertainty? So are they actually learning skills when they are risk-taking? So it's that whole balance that you've just mentioned. How do we help our teens take healthy risks without the dangerous ones? Because some risk-taking is important for them to learn independence.
Yeah.
And so I think also what the research does show is that as adults, we usually wildly overestimate the risks that our adolescents actually engage in.
Right.
So, of course, you will get the few that do the wild risks, but they're the ones who always stand out or in the media or whatever, and then we think all teenagers are doing that.
Yeah.
Actually, they're not all, and what they've also found is teenagers tend to take risks on things that are ambiguous. They often don't know, like your daughter. I love that you gave that example because for her, she had actually never experienced the pain or the result of her throwing her body into situations.
Just a few scrapes before that, and then suddenly something serious, and it's like, it could be bad.
Yes. And so she then learned about her body in space, in a sense, about what was safe for her, what wasn't safe for her. And we need to realize that obviously we've spoken about how our teens have different styles of processing information. So really, they don't always see the ultimate consequences because they don't have the life experience yet, because of their brains and so on. We also need to realize that teenagers take about twice as long as adults to think through something or to respond to something. For us, some dangers can be intuitive. And so sometimes it looks like they're taking a risk, but it's actually that they haven't thought through what's happening. And it's when they learn, like your daughter, they suddenly go, okay. And so one of the positives that you mentioned is when our young people have a tolerance for uncertainty or the unknown or a bit of risk-taking, it actually probably helps them leave the nest one day in a healthy way. And so there can be a comfort in knowing that they are learning how to be independent through risk-taking. But how do we do this as parents? We need to look at ways of giving our teens opportunities to safely experiment. So, things like rock climbing. If you've got a really out there teen, do things that seem to be a little bit more extreme for them, doing some of the more not quite extreme sports. I'm not saying let your children all skydive, but giving them opportunities to take a few risks. And then talk about healthy risks. Keep communicating when they do. Again, when they've made a mistake and it's come back to bite them, don't shame them. Don't make them feel stupid because they did something that you could see was going to end up in a certain way. Sometimes saying I told you so is not helpful. They don't suddenly think, oh, look how intelligent my parent is. They just go, oh, well, now I'll just hide from them even more.
And it doesn't stop too. I mean, it's a long time before teenagers actually develop that is it the frontal lobe you're talking about?
Yeah.
I remember when I was 18, just turned 18, I went to Papua New Guinea for a tennis trip and for the Pan Pacific Games, and we had security detail with us because Papua New Guinea is not a safe place.
Yeah.
And I decided at 18, you know what, I'm sick of walking around with these guys constantly. The tennis centre's only over there. I'm going to walk there myself. And then somebody tried to run me off the street. Wow. Literally came off the street to run me over. And I realised, actually, that security detail had a reason. And I should turn back and go back to the camp as quickly as possible. Yeah. But it's just one of those things, not thought through.
No.
Just thought, you know what, I'm sick of this. I can just walk out the door.
But it's hard, Ray. I think as parents, I can't stand thinking my children are not going to be safe or they're in danger, and we want to protect them. We don't want them to be hurt. But I've seen with my own children, and I think of my own past, some things our children have to knock their heads to actually learn it.
Yeah.
And it's painful to watch, and we wish we could rescue them. But I always say to parents, resilience isn't built when you're wrapped in cotton wool. No. Resilience isn't built by everything going well all the time.
Yeah.
The hardest part to know as parents is resilience is built through the hard times. And I don't love my children going through hard times, but sometimes that is the way they learn. And so obviously, I'm not talking about dangerous or illegal activity here. That's a different thing. Yeah. And that is when we might need to, again, get professional help or put up stronger boundaries around what's going on in our home then. But it's finding that balance with safe risk, allowing our children to make choices and go on trains on their own and do things by themselves with their friends sometimes. Those are the safer risks that we need to allow them to take.
But if you're assigned a security detail,
you stick with it.
You stick with it. Good to talk to you, Collett. Of course, we'd love to hear from you via the Hope Media app. Shoot us a message. Maybe get some comments or some questions or suggestions. We'd love to hear from you. This has been Raising Teens.
Hope 103.2. Thanks for listening.